You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we have a round of shocks to talk about. The American Eagles took down the Pakistani Shaheens. Canada beat Ireland, and the Bangladesh Sri Lanka derby delivered big time last night. I'm Jack Hope. I am joined by Max Rowe Brown. How are you doing, Max, on this Saturday morning?
Yeah, good. Excited for the World Cup. It's in full swing now, isn't it? And there's all sorts of bonkers stuff going on.
Yes, there is. I thought there was going to be a third point there. There wasn't.
No,
Ross,
so did I, and then there wasn't.
I've got
How are you
World Cup
doing?
fever. That's what I've got,
Have
mate. It's been
Yeah?
brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. Waking up this morning and watching the highlights, I love that the carnage has happened. It was teasing, wasn't it? In the first kind of few games, we thought that there was going to be something, and it has burst into flames, which is exactly what we want.
Right. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Pakistan's defeat to the USA. We're going to be talking about Namibia losing to Scotland. We're going to be talking about Canada beating Ireland, Afghanistan beating New Zealand, and Bangladesh beating Sri Lanka. So we've got a lot to get through. Before we get to any of that, though, just tip to our sponsor, Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. Get yourself the performance package, which comes with all of the ball care accessories that you will need.
Wonder if Harris Ralph
care.
does that. I wonder if he's all right. Has he seen he's been accused of ball tampering?
Tamper with your own balls, not the match balls. That's what we say here at the Cricket Podcast. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. Max, can you just quickly summarise the five matches that we've seen, and then I think we'll talk about Pakistan v India, v USA. We will talk about Pakistan v India, but that'll be later. Max,
5 matches. Well, shall I save Pakistan for last? Should we go in reverse chronological order?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Summaries? Let's do that. So the most recent game saw the renewal of the big rivalry that's the biggest rivalry in cricket. We know it's the biggest.
Nagging derby.
The Angelo Matthews Shakib Al Hassan hate-off, and it was Shakib who came out on top this time around because Sri Lanka can't bat still. Menindu Hasaranga, he dropped himself down the order and did one ball worse than he did in his first game with the Golden Duck, and Sri
Genuine
Lanka
number 11.
put up a pitiful 124. Bangladesh made a fairly pitiful attempt at chasing it, but they did chase it down with 2 wickets and 1 over to spare to give themselves a bit of a shot at the group. Before all that, though, there was probably another shock, I suppose you could call it, with not just in the result, but in the manner of the results. Afghanistan absolutely pounded New Zealand. The second consecutive century opening stand in the World Cup for Afghanistan. I believe the first time that's happened to open a World Cup. And they piled on 159 for 6. In the context of this World Cup, that's pretty good. And New Zealand fell in a heap. They lost Finn Allen first ball and never recovered. 75 all out. Absolutely shocking. Fazlak Faruqi and Rashid Khan doing the damage. All good stuff there. Canada and Ireland. Big game for Ireland, having been absolutely pounded by India and hoping, maybe they can sneak a win against Pakistan to get them through to the Super 8s. Well, they lost as well. That's that done. North America is looking strong in the world of cricket.
It's the new centre of cricket, I reckon.
Yeah.
Move over, India.
The new ICC overlords. Canada put up a record score at this ground in the World Cup, 137, not to be sniffed at. And Ireland, they lost wickets regularly to start with, didn't get off to much of a good beginning with their chase, and it was Mark Adair's 34 at the end that gave them a sniff of hope alongside George Dockrell, but they were always too far behind the rate on that ground, and it was a really, really good win for Canada. Very impressive. Before that, a really big game in Group B, Namibia and Scotland, to see who is the big associate with a chance of sneaking through, and it's Scotland after their good rained off point against England. I don't know if they'll be happy about that or not. I reckon they'd have taken a point before the game, and after 10 overs and England chasing 109. Maybe they'd have thought they had a sniff. But either way, they had a chance to make amends against Namibia. And they did so impressively. They restricted Namibia to 155. And it was a really mature professional chase from Scotland. They caught up well at the end. Michael Leask hitting 4 sixes in his 35. And they looked like a really confident side, Scotland. I was really impressed with the way they went about the chase against Namibia. And that brings us on to the big one, boys. The USA against Pakistan. It was on Thursday night for us in the UK. And, well, it was a familiar tale, wasn't it, for Pakistan? It was all about Babar Azam stinking the place out for 43 balls and Haris Ralph bottling it at the end. Both of those things happened. 12 of 3, they were defending. Haris Ralph bowled a pile of full tosses. The USA took it to a super over, and 18 runs off the super over was far beyond Pakistan's abilities. Shout out to Netravalkar, who bowled brilliantly in that game and in the super over, held his nerve after a couple of early wides. And the USA have announced themselves as a force in world cricket. And they're basically one win from going through now. That's mental.
Yeah, they are, man. They're good. That's one of the great games in T20 cricket. That had everything that you want from a World Cup contest, in my opinion. You've got David v Goliath. You've got Pakistan, the established team. They've won the World Cup. They were in the final the last time. They're a test nation. USA were a 10-1 shot. USA, they still don't really have a professional cricket team. The guy who bowls the super over, he works at Oracle full time. That's his job.
He's been dialing to meetings at lunchtimes.
Yes. I know they're improving fast, but that wasn't supposed to happen. So you've got that narrative. Then you've got just the most incredible game of cricket. USA come out firing, take a great catch early.
Taylor,
put the pressure on.
One-hander would slip.
Yeah. Pakistan fight back a little bit. Looks like they're going to get a good score. Well, they do get quite a good score in the scheme of this World Cup. You think that's probably out the reach of the USA. USA though, they're not pressured. They bat well. They have it in the bag, USA, actually. With about 5 overs to go, they've got the ball in the bag. Then Haris Ralph may or may not have ball tampered, but the ball does start doing something. And Pakistan roar back into the game. Then it comes down to the last 3 matches of the 20 last 3 balls of 20 overs, 12 required off 3 balls. You're just thinking, no way are USA going to do this. 6, and there's a run, and then it's a guy. I think he was on like 9 off 12 or something like that at this point. Nitish Kumar, the defector from Canada. This is his big moment. His whole life building up to this. He's got to hit a 6 to win it, or a 4 to keep them in the game, and he does.
And that's the drama everyone really wanted, wasn't it? No one wanted a 6. Nah,
I would have taken a 6.
over.
I think a 6 would have been kind of an iconic moment. I mean, the whole thing is an iconic moment, so we don't have to worry about that too much. Then in the super over, Pakistan properly wheels off. I can't believe USA did it 3 times. Like, there was a wide, and then they just ran, and Rizwan was just like, "Oh no, it's happened again." Yeah, I think what were they on 17 off the first 5, and at that point you were just like, this is done.
Yeah.
Pakistan aren't getting that. That is finished. Ross, what did you think?
I thought that Pakistan hadn't planned for a super over. I think they didn't know who they were going to bowl, and they didn't know who was coming out to bat. And I think they literally were. We said in the previews, we said that Pakistan USA is a very likely chance that USA would cause an upset. And it was because they're so complacent. Pakistan are just such a weird and wonderful cricket team that this was so on the cards. USA, I thought, played brilliantly. Absolutely brilliantly. But Pakistan's decision-making is just atrocious at the moment. It was interesting to see Mohammad Rizwan back behind the stumps. They went away from the Azam Khan experiment from the England game. That was a complete shock to nobody. But yeah, overall, really poor planning, really poor execution from Pakistan, but absolutely brilliant from the United States.
It was Ross, not Ross, other Ross. And by other Ross, I mean Max.
Hello.
Are USA going to the Super 8s?
Yeah, they are. From what I've seen, because they just need to beat Ireland, basically, don't they? And Ireland look bad. Like, Ireland looked genuinely bad. Like I would make the USA favourites for that matchup on what I've seen so far. And they, I mean, they deserve it. If you beat one of the big boys in your group as an associate nation, you absolutely deserve to get a place in the Super Over. And obviously, the important thing is if it does happen, it'll deny us of more India-Pakistan games, which would completely ruin the ICC's plans for the whole tournament, which would be extra funny. So
it'd be like the WWE, I reckon, Max. Inadvertently, Pakistan come out with a Megatron and literally, oh no, there's a wild card. It's actually the Super Nines now.
Yeah, a floating team in between two groups that plays the top two of each group, and then there's a three-way semi. Yeah. Maybe we could. I think that's an idea for the 100. Actually, it could work.
I think you're right, Max. USA, but they've got to win one game. India's going to be a tough one. I think we all acknowledge that. But you never know on some of these pitches. Like Pakistan should have been able to put them away pretty comfortably. India are better than Pakistan, but it's not unthinkable. USA played some good cricket. Ireland's the one last game, I think. Oh no, it's their next game, isn't it? I believe. Certainly,
I'll get the schedule up. I can't keep up at the moment.
If they can,
when they are,
if they win that, they're through.
I mean, that glitch has given me time to tell you that the USA's last game is against Ireland at Lauderhill on Friday, the 14th of June. So that is like a straight win that and you're through on the Friday, 3:30 p.m. in the UK time. So I can watch that while preparing for all the wedding shenanigans that will be unfolding.
Yeah, Max is getting married next week, everybody. Next Saturday.
Yeah. No pod on Saturday, I'm afraid.
Max is going to go Max Ross Brown. That's what's happening.
It's news to me.
Well, should we get back to the cricket? So I think
yes.
Which game should we go to next? So USA, absolutely huge result. Pakistan, like not surprised whatsoever by that result. They are out of the tournament, but they are certainly not favourites to go through now. Where should we go next, Max?
Well, what do you think is the second biggest story in this? I reckon Afghanistan, New Zealand's probably. So this was a game where I thought that New Zealand was undercooked. It looked like they hadn't played a lot of T20 cricket together. Afghanistan had a game plan, and we said going in, Jonathan Trott was trying to get them to a position where they really trusted an approach that was going to win them in T20. And their opening partnership of Zadran and Gurbaz has really kind of hit home. Gurbaz in particular going absolutely ballistic. And they feasted on some pretty ordinary bowling, if I'm perfectly honest, because you've got the likes of Bracewell, who might have had one of the worst T20 games I've seen. And he was pounded, unfortunately for him. Daryl Mitchell was sent to the moon, and it was just going so far. First ball that he faced, Gurbaz kind of hitting him out the ground. But it was a really, what's the word? Like professional performance from Afghanistan. The pitch wasn't brilliant. They knew they were going to have the bowling to cause some trouble. Did they think they were going to have the bowling to cause 75 all out? Perhaps not. But they were excellent. And Faruqi is an absolute demon. 9 wickets in the first 2 games of the World Cup for him. Yeah. Does anyone have him as a top wicket taker in this tournament? That was a mistake.
So I think he's taken 9 wickets for 26 runs.
Yeah, good figures. That'd be decent Test match figures. That I'd say
very decent.
That's a Stuart Broad spell against Australia. Yeah, I think the thing for me with Afghanistan and the way I think we saw it in the One-Day World Cup as well. Obviously, 2 completely different formats, but it's the Jonathan Trott era, I suppose, and what they're trying to do, and you can see there's an understanding with Afghanistan of what they have, what resources they have at their disposal, and how they use those best to try and put together a winning formula. And like you look at their batting and you think it's not necessarily that exciting, or there's not fireworks. Gurbaz aside, probably. So what do? You build a decent platform, I suppose, and try and then because you've got people like Mohammed Nabi and Rashid Khan who can catch up at the end of it. It's a little bit old school, I suppose, in the way, but it's it's a good blueprint for what Afghanistan have got, and with the bowling attack they have, they'll back themselves to defend sort of a middling total. And with the way the games have gone in the World Cup so far, on the pitches that we've seen, where there's, it's not the easiest to score runs quickly, and there's something in it for the bowlers. That's a blueprint that looks like it could serve Afghanistan really, really well. So I think they're set up nicely. They're thinking about the way they want to approach the game, and that's what we're always praising teams or chastising teams for, isn't it? Role clarity and doing, using resources, everyone knowing what they want to do. And I think there's signs of that from this Afghanistan side, that they've got a blueprint together that kind of works. And yeah, on the other hand, it was New Zealand kind of throwing together a motley crew of the same old faces and just expecting them to,
it was a really
all out there and
performance.
do the job. And yeah, it didn't happen.
No,
Didn't really have a plan.
No, and I just can't. Having a 3-4 of Williamson and Mitchell isn't scaring anybody in T20 cricket. It's just not. Like Finn Allen, fine, really good first ball from Faruqi, really, really good. Devon Conway hasn't played cricket in months. There's a lot of pressure there. They are really good cricketers, and yeah, New Zealand could easily bounce back in the next couple of games, right? There's no doubt about that. But this was an absolute shellacking from Afghanistan, and yeah, as you said, they maximised the resources, and it was really, really good to see. And I think that was a little bit of what we saw over the last couple of games, Max. Like actually, the teams who perhaps lesser or underdogs or slight underdogs in the games actually not being complacent, right? Really trying to take their catches. Afghanistan fielded really well and really pushing it to maximise what they've got, and that could be the same for the likes of Canada, Scotland against Namibia as well, because obviously they're underdogs in that game. But it's, again, everyone stepping up to do the basics really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's about using your resources, isn't it? And if there's one thing that you can control as a side in a game where you're not as fancied or not as heralded as the opposition, being on it in the field is like the number one thing, right? The energy, cleanness in the field, and putting pressure on. That's one of the main things that you can actually control if the other team are a bit more skilled than you. So I think we've seen a lot of that, and it's been impressive. It's a really strong start for Afghanistan. Then the net run rate is absolutely outrageous. It's over 5 after 2 games. So I mean that's pretty strong for them. You're looking at 1 win and they're through essentially, and West Indies and New Zealand fighting it out. So that's an interesting group to keep an eye on as well. It's shaping up really nicely, isn't it, so far this World Cup? Have we got Jack back? Is he, or is he still?
Let's take a break though. Let's take a break because I think we've hit 20-minute mark. Then we'll come back about some market. How about that?
Sounds great.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cricket Podcast. I think Jack is still struggling, so Ross and I will move on, and Jack can jump in.
Two-man pod. Two-man
pod. But the beauty of it is, if you're watching on YouTube, you do get to look at the three of us. So it's the best of all worlds, right? You can see all of us and hear some of us. What more could you want? Where are we going next, Ross?
We're going to go to the South Asian Ding Dong. That's what we're going to go to. Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh. It was a race to the bottom to show who was worse at cricket. And on this occasion, Sri Lanka were worse. It was a low-scoring affair. Batting really undervalued in this. And
undervalued in both of these cricket teams, it has to be said.
But some pretty decent bowling, it's probably fair to say. Pretty decent. But you saw almost like the ceiling of Bangladesh. I thought this was one of those games where I was just like, can they really get any better than this? Because I genuinely think when I look at their batting lineup, 130 is about what they can handle. And here, Sri Lanka only got to 124, so they were well in. And overall, Sri Lanka, we talked about Afghanistan having a plan. Sri Lanka didn't have a plan. They were embarrassed in the first game. They haven't turned up in the second game either. And it's been quite disheartening, I think, if you're a Sri Lanka fan. And there's some reasons to feel sorry for Sri Lanka, Max, isn't there? They are so far away from their hotel. They're so far away from the grounds, the training facilities. But Bangladesh, they've got an even worse gig. So Bangladesh have it even worse than Sri Lanka do in terms of logistical setups around travelling to games, etc. So I think that they can put that excuse back in the locker, Max. Just not very good has been my unfortunate piece. I have enjoyed Wanadu Hasaranga getting another duck, which is absolutely delicious to me because it completely fuels my confirmation bias that he is not a very good batsman.
Yeah, it's not. So I mean, you had Faruqi's figures from his first 2 games of like 9 for 26. Hasaranga's figures from his first 2 games, 0 of 3. Good. Not ideal. I thought we had Jack back there. He popped on and he popped off. So it's quite hard to pick the bones out of this sort of game because it's to reuse one of Jack's favoured phrases, I think. It's got 2 bald men fighting over a comb vibes, this Sri Lanka Bangladesh game, because they're just not very good. With the ball, they're okay, right? Especially on, maybe I don't know about the Dallas pitch so much because I think in general that's played all right. I think, but I'm thinking sort of kind of, your Guyana kind of slower benefits the spinners kind of thing. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, both pretty solid bowling lineups. And, I think you'd back them to kind of restrict teams to manageable totals. But there's just nothing with the batting that is remotely exciting. And you just don't back them to find a way to score at a rate that is good enough for T20 cricket. And that might be a domestic issue with the way they approach cricket or where they focus, a lack of opportunity, maybe just because of the spread of T20 leagues, like the standard of the LPL and the BPL is diminishing further and further. I think where you see kind of you think like players like Will Jacks, for example, who've had stints in the BPL in the last 5 years or so, sort of up and coming players who will try and score big runs and on kind of trickier pitches, but show you the blueprint, I suppose, for T20. SA20 comes in, Major League Cricket comes in, and there's it's even more competition for places. It makes it even harder for the competitions like the Lanka Premier League and the Bangladeshi Premier League to compete on that. And I wonder if that's part of the problem that we're seeing here with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka in terms of generating what they need to compete in T20 cricket with the bat. Because, like I said in the preview, like Sri Lanka's bowling lineup's good. It's a good bowling lineup, and it showed because they nearly defended 124 in this game, but neither side has got enough about them with the bat, and it was a classic example of that in this game. Like, just
I think it's
a race to the bottom. I think is a really good way of putting it, actually, Ross.
Well, I think you're spot on in terms of the franchise element to it, right? If you look down the teams, like we were looking at Afghanistan's team in the preview, they've got 10 people, 11 people who are playing in the IPL regularly. Like they've literally got starting berths in those teams. Afghanistan they started after Bangladesh. Bangladesh have not kind of taken that step forward. Sri Lanka, we know their domestic game is a little bit all over the place. They've got about 3 million teams that are kind of completely disseminating all of the talent, and they haven't put it into one concentrated area. Last time we were reviewing them when England were playing them in the Test cricket. And you just look at these teams, and Mustafizur plays in the IPL. Is anyone else on that list there? Litton Das had a contract in the last one, but didn't play.
Been there.
Yeah, Shakib's old now. Shakib's portly. Shakib's a politician. He's literally an elected politician in Bangladesh. He's not a professional cricketer now. And then when you've got the likes of Patarana, Tikshana, Tisara, and Hasaranga, they're good bowlers, but the batting leaves a lot to be desired. You'd
Mm.
see there's some threats, right, from Kusal Mendes, who has every now and again some really crazy innings, and it's great to watch. But consistently, these teams, their standard is really quite low. What I am surprised at, Max, is I think if you were to say which teams are going to benefit most from having kind of low and slow turning wickets, who would come out on top? And actually, Sri Lanka's batting and Bangladesh batting should be more adept at adapting to those. Yes, the first pitch for Sri Lanka versus South Africa was bouncy and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't adapt. And here, they didn't adapt again. And that's a really big problem. And Sri Lanka are out of the competition, as far as I'm concerned, Max. They might as well pack their bags.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can write off the South Africa game. It was on an absolute minefield of a pitch, and they weren't going to win it anyway. But yeah, they had to beat Bangladesh if they were going to get through. Absolutely, that was a must-win game, and well, they lost it, so they're stuffed really. Unless Netherlands can spring a surprise, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility. I mean, so if Netherlands manage to take down Bangladesh and Sri Lanka can win their other two games, you could see a 4-point net run rate situation unfolding.
Can we check out Sri Lanka's run rate? Can we? Is that all right?
It's 0.7 minus 0.7. It's not that bad. Bangladesh are only on 0.37. So a big win over Nepal, and the Netherlands could see them through. But I mean, the thing is, if the Netherlands beat Bangladesh, then they're looking at like, well, it's an interesting group, that one actually, Group D. I think we probably had that as like the big opportunity for an associate nation to sneak through in the Netherlands. Obviously, it's looking like the USA maybe the one to look out for there, but there's more than one associate nation being in the Super 8s is a distinct possibility, and that
would be a success.
Fantastic.
I think that would be a success for world cricket if a couple of associated nations would be there. It kind of reminds me of the 2002 Football World Cup, where South Korea ended up finishing fourth.
Yeah,
and you're just like, nobody saw that happening, and yet there's a power of being the host nation, right? And we're going to have some pretty cool conspiracy theories in the YouTube comments. I've got no doubt about that. Pakistan had Mohammed Amir bowling the super over. I mean, that's literally ripe for it. Bowls 3 wides in that. It's absolutely ripe for it. And we've not touched it. We've given that a wide berth, haven't we, on that? But I'm going to enjoy all the speculation because we've even had some in the live chat. And thank you to everybody who's watching. If you do like what we're doing, please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Jack has texted us saying his connection is banjaxed. He must have dial-up from the 1990s. But he has said that Rishad Hussain for Bangladesh, the unlicensed Rashid Khan is what he said. He's kind of a Pro Evo version of him, bowled particularly well, and that is his contribution to what we're doing. So, yes. As I said, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Max, let's not worry about Canada versus Ireland. I don't think we're running out of time. I think we should talk about the upcoming games because they're huge. England play Australia, and India play Pakistan, and then there's a couple like of banana skins, as you said, for South Africa, where they're playing against Netherlands. This weekend has huge.
I think you've been harsh on. I think you've been harsh on Canada there, Ross. I think they at least deserve a line of praise for overcoming Ireland after losing to the USA in the first game and getting their name on the board. And Ireland, I think, also probably deserve to be nailed in the coffin. Jack's telling you to talk about Canada.
Fine, let's talk about Canada. Let's talk about Canada. Fine. Well, what I thought about this game, Max, was that Canada did as well as they possibly could do. We talked about a ceiling before of Bangladesh's batting of 130. Canada, 140. They're better than Bangladesh. That's great. And they were resourceful, is how I'd say it. They literally adapted what they had. They clearly had a batting plan for their players. They knew where they were going to score their boundaries. And that, again, is the best part of what we're seeing. Because T20 is so high variance, they've got these big opportunities to actually cause upsets. And Canada and Ireland, how different are they in terms of the ability they've got on the pitch? You would say that Ireland are better, right?
Yeah,
overall.
100%. I mean, I was saying in the preview of Ireland that you look at this, the side they put together, and there's some good players in there, and I feel like I've been thinking some top level players as well. Josh Little, Paul Sterling, they're franchise level T20 players, and 9 off 17 is not ideal from one of those with the bat, but they've underwhelmed in big tournaments, Ireland, where you think they've had a chance of springing a surprise, or they've got the odd win against England, but every associate nation can spring a surprise against England. That's not an achievement. England are right for the picking there, but you always think, oh, maybe they could sneak through. They've got a shot. This is their moment, and it doesn't happen. And again, disappointed. Like they wouldn't expect to beat India, especially on that pitch batting first. But this was their chance to, with the way Pakistan are playing, really an opportunity for them to make some ground. And I don't know what it is. Is it the mentality? Is it just on the biggest stage, or are they just not as good as we think?
It is a tricky one. But I think sometimes it's quite easy to turn around and say this team was bad, this team, and that's why they lost. Here, I thought Canada were just quite good, and actually I thought they outplayed Ireland. Curtin in the middle overs was particularly good. Long levers could hit a decent boundary, and actually looked like a complete player against them. And the Ireland's bowling lineup's actually quite varied and quite difficult. Josh Little's had a really tough start to the tournament. I think he's gone pretty much at tens against both India and Canada here. But overall, when it comes to the bowling, that was the big strength for Canada. It turned out, as they literally were nothing special, but they literally had a plan. And I'm going to keep on saying it this whole podcast. They had a plan. They stuck to it. There was a game management strategy they had, and I've just absolutely loved what they did. Is it going to be sustainable in the rest of their group? I don't think so. Right, I think they're going to get absolutely walloped in some of the other games, but they've come away from this, and now we've got Canada with a win, Uganda with a win. Right, they are huge things that are happening. USA have got 2 out of 2. Like, this World Cup has already delivered, and it might not be delivering how the ICC really want it to go, because they want all the big nations right into there. I'm of the opposite opinion. I want 2 or 3, 4 associate nations in there, and if it comes at the expense of England, then do you know what? Maybe that's the way it's going to be. Yeah, exactly.
I think one last thing on this game, Ross, because I think it was the first game we've seen since they tried to fix the pitch. So they basically cut all of the grass and got the heaviest roller they possibly could and watered it quite heavily, I believe, is what they've been up to. And the commentators have obviously been paid handsomely by tournament organisers to tell us all that it was solved and it was much better and it was fantastic. It was better because the ball wasn't randomly shooting through at ankle height anymore, but it was still absolutely leaping off a length. And it was, with the new ball, if you bowled it on the right spot-ish, it was impossible to bat still for a bit. So let's not get carried away. I think it brought the bat back into the game a bit more, and it was definitely improved, but it was still quite nice to bowl on. And I think Canada's approach really took that and worked with it nicely, because you could see they'd learned from the first 2 games. They're like, well, we're not going to try and pull everything because we'll top edge it and get out. We'll just pick off the bad balls, which Ireland bowled too many of, and accumulate what we can, and it'll be tough to chase, and that's what happened. So like you said, with the plan, Canada executed well, played well, good effort, and still looking forward to seeing what Pakistan and India can extract from that wicket, because it's got a bit still.
Well, let's start with the previews then, Max, because I think when it comes to today, we've got Netherlands versus South Africa. That is a banana skin, but South Africa looked pretty bloody good against Sri Lanka. And yes, it was a bit of a dodgy pitch, but their bowling lineup in particular is pretty tasty. But the Netherlands won't go down without a fight. Where if you were a betting man, Max, where are you placing your money today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not betting on it because I won't get good enough odds on South Africa winning this game for the level of jeopardy that's in it. I think that's what I'm saying. If I'm betting on some really niche stuff, like I don't know, as the leader to take the most wickets for the Netherlands or something.
Oh,
I think
Tim Pringle, mate. Tim Pringle. He's going to get a sponsorship deal. That's what he's going to get.
Yeah, it's at New York again though. Like it's Seamers. I think Nortje will still be too much for the Netherlands to face. He looked pretty sharp against Sri Lanka, but I think it should be reasonably entertaining. But it's a warm up, isn't it? It's a warm up for the evening game. Apart from the fact that the end of it will be at the start of the big one. But the timings of this World Cup, Ross, we've spoken about it so many times, but it's random as well. That's the thing. Like, it's not even. I understand, like, so okay, somewhat 1:30 in America, and well, I understand that is what they've done. I don't understand why they've done it, but that's what they've done. But then, like, the next day, it's 12:30 a.m. and it's 4:30 in the afternoon. You're like, how do I keep up with this? Come on.
Well, it's true, but the big game tonight, Australia versus England. Obviously, England had their first game cruelly rained off against Scotland.
Do you think England would have won that?
I was in the Matthew Mott camp purely in the fact that you kind of have to, right? If you're English versus Scottish, like every Scot would have thought, well, we're going to easily smash England. And it took every part of me not to do a Scottish accent there, Max.
Well done for resisting.
Thank you very much. I think I'm good at Scottish accents, by the way. But maybe if we'll see what happens with Scotland win the next.
Save that for bonus content.
Absolutely. And Australia, they eased past Oman. Pat Cummins is going to come back into the side by the looks of things. So Mitchell Stark did hobble off with cramp, but he's expected to play. This is a game
my
which
top wickets shout.
Yeah, this is a game where we should see hopefully the very best of the two teams. Like the both of these are favourite. They're in the top three, right? In the top three for winning this tournament. And are we going to see the England who turned up against Pakistan and actually decimated them, or are we going to see a relatively toothless bowling lineup that Scotland kind of put to the sword to a certain extent? It's a real lottery England have turned into, and we just don't really know which one we're going to expect. They're quite on parallel with the England football team at the moment, who lost to Iceland last night.
Oh, God.
So there is
a tournament. Yeah.
So yeah, there is that part. There is the jeopardy there, and the fact that it's on at 6 o'clock tonight, Max. I think it's going to be good. Like this could get quite a few watchers from. I'm
obviously playing cricket this afternoon, so I'll be hoping that we. Well, normally I'd say I'm hoping that we'll lose nice and early so that we can get around to watching the cricket because the first few games of the season didn't go so well. But we're playing bottom of the league this week, and we've just got a win. So suddenly we're
trending upwards.
We're going in the right direction. So a nice quick win for us by 6 o'clock. Go to the clubhouse and watch Australia England. That'd be delightful. I think this one could hinge a little bit on what England go with the bowling lineup. They obviously went with Jofra Archer and Mark Wood against Scotland, which I thought was interesting. They did that in the last warm-up against Pakistan as well. I assumed that they were there to kind of rotate a bit. I didn't think England would be going all in Archer and Wood, and I think that it would be a mistake to do that against Australia, because if there's one thing that Australia might have a weakness with at the top of the order, it would be, a little bit of movement early up. I'm thinking Reece Topley is probably going to trouble Travis Head a bit more than Mark Wood. And I mean, Jofra Archer is difficult for anyone to face, but Mark Wood's pace, I assume England expected to trouble Scotland more than it did. Mark Wood's pace isn't going to be a concern for someone like Travis Head. Unless you're bowling 98 miles an hour, you can't. Which he does one ball every now and then, sure, but like even up at 95, just pure pace isn't enough against elite level cricketers. England have still got this kind of fetish for people bowling 90 plus miles an hour, and yeah, it's great to watch. And when the numbers come up, you get very excited. But also when it pings over your head or it gets pulled for a huge six, it's kind of irrelevant how fast you bowled the ball. And I'm a bit concerned that if England go in with that mentality, that Australia could get a pretty strong start on the board, and it might be a bit of a chastening day for England's bowlers, because The other thing is, if they don't have that power play bowler, it brings Chris Jordan into the power play.
Well, I was
That's
going to
not a
say, should Chris
situation you wanna
Jordan be
being
actually
in.
the one who gets chopped? So as much as England wants
Yeah,
to in the batting
could
lineup,
be.
like could it be a case of going England pick Topley and everyone moves up one and
Yes.
that and you still can field Chris Jordan, like you still just be on the
Yeah,
pitch
yeah, that's
as a
true.
fielder, right? That's not against the rules, I don't think. So
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point, but I think either way, I want to see Topley in that lineup because I think England getting power play wickets is important in this game.
yeah, agreed. Max, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. England will win. They'll beat the
Yeah?
Aussies. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they weren't all that good against Oman, were they, Australia? So, but I'm going to go for the Aussies because I think I said they'll win the whole thing. So,
Well, you've got to back your courage of your convictions, Max.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow we've got Oman versus Scotland. If Scotland win that, they put themselves into a really nice position, for it.
Yeah.
And the old men of Oman will be looking to do themselves some justice. West Indies play against Uganda. Uganda will be on an absolute high after their first win in World Cup history when they overcame Papua New Guinea. West Indies, they were a bit pants in the first game against Papua New Guinea. They were complacent. They didn't pick the right 11. They didn't really have a proper plan around it other than, don't worry, Roston Chase will save us with a bit of Dre Rust drizzled over the top. Max, there's not going to be an upset there, is there? Surely West Indies could overcome Uganda.
You can't see it, can you? I mean, I'm impressed that Uganda beat Papua New Guinea. That was a really good effort. Even if West Indies are as bad as they were against the Papua New Guinea, I just can't see it from Uganda. But
No.
you never know. But it just seems too much. That's just if that happens, it's just like, yeah, go home, cricket. You're drunk. Stop it. Cancel the World Cup. This is done.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned from listening to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast is that expect the unexpected when it comes
West Indies.
to
I mean, they could score 400, or they could be all out for 40.
So that'll be a good game to follow. But then we've got the crunch match. It's the New York. It's
The
India,
Minnows.
Pakistan. We're finally going to see what the ICC have hosted this tournament for. It is India versus Pakistan. It's the political, the geography kind of rivalry that captures world imagination. It's the most watched game in sport. And they're going to play on a bit of a shit tip, Max. So it's going to be quite an entertaining game. India are favourites, I think it's fair to say, for this. Playing on worse pitches, India definitely have the advantage over Pakistan. But Pakistan are the lottery team. They roll the dice pretty much every over to see what type of Pakistan is going to come out. So you can never truly write them off. And the last time these two met in a T20 competition, it was competitive, obviously, and Pakistan have also got a couple of wins over them. But I can't see anything other than an India win, Max.
Big toss.
Huge toss.
Big toss to win this one, I think. Yeah. Although Canada obviously batted first and defended against Ireland, but in the first two games it was a real, it's stuffed basically. I think there is a big benefit to batting second here, even if the pitches has changed a bit, and it could all be down to one fierce spell of bowling at the top. I think both sides have actually got opening batters who are well equipped to deal with that kind of situation. Like Rohit Sharma is India's test opener, and he is. I assume he's okay to play after taking a bit of a knock, but it was precautionary, wasn't it, that they withdrew him in the first game. But he's class, like Kohli as well. Like they're test players. They are able to deal with difficult batting conditions. And Pakistan, they've got Babar Azam plays test match in T20s. So there is an opportunity for both those sides to negotiate that opening period. So actually, it's good. I think it should be a really, really fascinating matchup, this one on this pitch. But I agree with you, having seen Pakistan lose to the USA, that I find it difficult to see India not winning this. But like Pakistan,
I just don't understand what's in the middle.
Anything. They could just skittle India for 100. Like it could happen.
The
They've got-
bowling, the bowling is decent. Right? Decent is the Pakistan's bowling lineup is decent. I am not convinced that they're picking the right players. They've got a random bloke they've stolen from the UAE, batting at 3. They've got the world's heaviest cricketer for no reason in that lineup. Maybe a couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
I'm not fat shaming there, but when you're a proper professional cricketer, like there is no reason to do what he's doing at the moment. Like he's not good enough to play at that standard, if I'm perfectly honest. And they're not using him in the way in which you'd use that type of player. And I don't think they've picked the right squad either, Max. They are not capitalising on the Pakistan Super League is a good franchise league, and you've seen some really good Pakistani players come through. I don't think they're optimising what they're trying to do in that team at all.
Well, how can you when you have a coaching setup that changes every 5 minutes, right? It's not possible to put a plan in place because no one's there long enough to even write a plan, let alone see one through.
I've got some good news, Max. Though they are they've unretired Shoaib Malik and they've unretired Mohammed Hafiz, so the doc is back. So don't worry, they'll be back in the middle order, solving that problem.
Yeah, India favourites, I think, comfortably. The way things have gone with the pitches in general, like not just this New York one, which is obviously a bit iffy, but just in general, the nature of the scores we've seen has led me quite heavily lean towards India having a very, very good shout of winning this World Cup on early viewing.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I'll be surprised if India lose tomorrow, but we can't rule it out because the lottery Pakistan are always there. Max, I think that wraps up the show. We'll be back. I don't know, maybe tomorrow night after all of the fun and games that happened, but we will see. Maybe it's going to be on Monday evening when we get a few more to cover. Thank you for everybody who's watched. Sorry about Jack's internet connection. He's just not very reliable as a human being. And Max, I will look forward to all of the love and nice will wishes for your wedding that we're going to get in the YouTube comments. Because if there's one thing I know, Max, about our lovely loyal contingent, is that they can't wait for the page 6 news. I think that's page 6 in the United States for the gossip column of Ed Sheeran's marriage coming up.
Gosh, yeah. I can confirm that any Ed Sheeran songs are banned from the playlist of my wedding.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Have a lovely day.
See you soon.